days you have, there's never enough time, but then you think, oh, I have so much things to do, I don't have enough time, and then, oh, I can't wait until November 6th is here. But I have to tell you, it's been an honor and a privilege to crisscross the state and meet people I otherwise would not have the opportunity to meet on this journey. And as I often tell people, my run for the Supreme Court is really not about me, although I have to do it. It's really about making our government better at every level. And as a judge on the Court of Appeals, I figured that it's easier for me to try to do it at the judiciary. That needs reforms and that needs to be better, just like our executive offices and just like our General Assembly. And so, in a recent endorsement interview I had at a newspaper, I was telling the panel interviewing me is this race for me is so much more than about my desire to get to the court or my opponent's desire to stay there. As you probably know, my opponent was appointed to the seat in January when Bill O'Neill decided to run for governor. Judges can run for any judicial seat and keep their seat on the bench. So as a Court of Appeals judge, I could run for common pleas, I could run for muni, I could run for Supreme Court, and stay in my seat. But judges can't run for any other elected office and keep their seats. So you can run for governor, city council person, county commissioner, dog catcher, can't run for anything. So Bill O'Neill had to retire when he decided to run for governor. Thanks, Bill. Made my job harder because my opponent got appointed. So, as some of you know, the Ohio State Bar Association, and I know I'm not competing with recess out there.
I hope you have signs out there.
Pardon me?
I hope you have some signs out there.
Oh, I know. Ernie, maybe you need to put some signs out there. When we were, the Ohio State Bar Association interviews only candidates running for the Ohio Supreme Court. And it is an extensive process. They read our cases that we've written, to the extent that you're a Court of Appeals judge and you have written some decisions. They check references, recommendations on us. They look at any ethics violations. They make us sign a sheet of paper saying, hey, we won't lick our tongues out at each other and we'll be civil to our opponent. And then there's an interview. 12 Republican lawyers from across the state, 12 Democratic lawyers from across the state. And I had about an hour interview. And it's an extreme vetting process. The maximum amount of points you can get are 30 points. And people in the state of Ohio should be satisfied, or at least grateful for the fact that all 4 candidates in both judicial races for the Supreme Court were rated highly recommended. That's if you got 24 points or higher, you were highly recommended. But one candidate got 29 out of 30 points, and she's standing in front of me.
Hey!
So I'm the highest rated Supreme Court candidate of all the candidates.
Wow, good for you.
I don't know where I lost that 1 point.
Yeah.
Still working, trying to figure that out. And so I'm grateful to get that, especially by peers, the lawyers across the state, who know better than anyone what our court system means and how our courts operate. So it was an honor to get that. Subsequent to that, I got the endorsement of the Columbus Dispatch, and I was glad to receive that. Then came the Akron Beacon Journal, and I was glad to get that. And yesterday was the Cleveland Plain Dealer.
Oh,
So
great.
I was glad to get that. So all of the newspapers that have done endorsements, I received them all. A couple of newspapers who were going to endorse backed off and decided not to endorse. And then one, I think, the Vindicator, Youngstown Vindicator, where my opponent is from. And so that helps because my opponent's going to outraise me. She's going to 4-1, 5-1. She's going to outspin me. But those sort of bipartisan or nonpartisan objective evaluations of our credentials, I think will bode well for me. And speaking to people like you, who find out about your candidates and who tell other people. And before I forget, one of the things my campaign manager, Ernie Davis, who got here first, one of the things he brought in, we have postcards that have a little blurb about me saying, I'm voting for Melanie Stewart, this is why, I hope you do the same. So if you want to take any of those, I think they're on the table right there. Please feel free to take those. We can reimburse you for postage if you like, or it can be an in-kind contribution to the campaign. But those have gone like hotcakes. Those and our signs we did a post a couple days ago when I was at the Ohio Democratic Party headquarters. I was all in my nice suit and nylons, and I'm putting together signs. Now, I'll tell you a secret. My campaign manager hates signs. Hates them. Yes, I just threw you under the bus. But we're putting together signs, and he posts, he says, I'm going to post how we're putting these signs together as fast as we can, but they're going as fast as we can. Well, that post backfired, because when you put that post up, all the requests started coming in. We need 400 signs in Montgomery. We need 200 signs in Ashland. We need to, and he's like, dude, I don't even have 400 signs. And then people said, you have to saturate like Parker and other people, and they were naming judges who were running just in their county. So we have to explain, we're running in 88 counties.
Yeah.
You know, we have to raise, $2 million to have signs of that magnitude in every county. And so we're doing what we can, and we're grateful. I'm going to tell you a little bit of background about myself, and hopefully I don't bore any of you who have heard me speak before, but just so you know a little bit of who I am as a candidate. I'm a native Ohioan, born and raised, lived most of my life in Cuyahoga County. I went through the Cleveland public schools for a while, but really more so in Cleveland Catholic schools. Went to an all-girls college prep school in Cleveland Heights. And when I was in kindergarten in the Cleveland public schools, there was still a piano in the classroom, which is probably unheard of today. But my kindergarten teacher, when we would come in, would gather us around the piano, and she'd play. And we'd sing songs. And at recess, when all the kids ran out to play, I would just shimmy over to that piano, and I would try to pick out the tune that she was playing. And after doing that several occasions, she said to my mother, I think you ought to take her to get music lessons. And so my mother enrolled me in the Cleveland Music School settlement, which was actually far from me, where I studied music from the time I was about 5.5 years old to 6. On through high school, I was the accompanist for our school choir, our high school choir, and believe it or not, I went on to major in music in college. So I got my undergraduate degree at the College Conservatory of Music at the University of Cincinnati, and as I often tell people, because with a name like Melody, what else was I studying music, right? So I'm a classically trained pianist, but my degree is in music theory and composition. So I promptly took that music degree, got a job in the healthcare industry, where I managed a healthcare management office for about a year, and I got intellectually bored. Now, the vice president of the company at that time was in law school while he was working there. He would come in and sit his books down. We still have books back in those days. He would sit his books down, and I would peruse through them. Corporations, contracts, property. And so I thought, interesting, maybe I'll apply to law school. I called my older sister, who happens to have a law degree, happens to be a lawyer too. There's quite a difference between us in age. And she was in law school when I was in high school. And I thought she should be spending time bonding with me. And she was studying and working. So I called her and said, I'm thinking about applying to law school. What do you think? She was very quiet, and she said, I don't think you ought to do it. I said, So I applied the next day, and I got into law school, and I went to law school at Cleveland Marshall, and I've had a 30-year career in law. I first started off doing civil defense litigation for the city of Cleveland when George Voinovich was mayor of the city of Cleveland. Wow. Right? As you're supposed to say, you don't look that old.
You don't.
Thank you. So yeah, I did civil defense litigation for a while. Then I went into law academia. So I became an assistant dean for Cleveland Marshall College of Law, and then joined their faculty. So I was a law professor there for a couple of years. Went to the University of Toledo and taught law there. Took a year off because a doctoral program from Case Western Reserve found me. So I went on and I got a PhD in social science from Case Western Reserve. And that degree has been important in my time on the bench because it helps me to ask the right questions, so I can come up with the right answers when doing my cases. It also helps me to see some unintended consequences of some of our laws and legislations, and maybe can anticipate and write an opinion that reflects that, so that we're looking forward and we're thinking ahead. Then I went to the appellate court, right from law academia to the appellate court, because I thought that my background and credentials in researching and writing was better suited for the Court of Appeals as opposed to the trial court. A lot of appellate court judges are first trial courts, and then they make their way up to the appellate courts. And I just went right to the appellate court. So I've been on the Court of Appeals in the 8th District for 12 years. It'll be 12 years in December. And it is a job that challenges me intellectually every day. It is a good training ground for young attorneys coming out of law school, and I get externs from law schools who also work there. And I have been asked or approached to consider the Ohio Supreme Court since 2008. Now, mind you, I just got to the Court of Appeals in 2006. I thought, I should stay here, I should learn the job a little bit longer than that. And so over the years, I've had conversations with the chair from another party, and had this last conversation with David Pepper over a year ago. And we thought that this was the time to come out and try to, I told him my ideas about being on the Supreme Court and what I would envision and how I think I could make the court better. And, of course, the fact that the Supreme Court is comprised of justices who all belong to one political party. And I don't think that's good for the highest level of our judiciary. And I feel that way regardless of the party. We shouldn't have an all-Republican Supreme Court. We shouldn't have an all-Democratic Supreme Court, or Libertarian, or Green. We're too diverse of a state to not have the different perspectives of our citizenship represented at the Supreme Court. And so that's not to say that they make all the decisions when deciding a case the same way. But let me tell you where it's most important. In every county in this state, you have a right to appeal to the Court of Appeals, where I currently sit. This is the 10th district here in Franklin County. And there are 12 district appellate courts, state appellate courts in the state of Ohio. The single districts are Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, obviously, for the populations, the 1st, the 10th, and the 8th district, which means the other 9 district appellate courts make up the other 85 counties. You have a right to appeal any and every decision a trial court makes. Traffic ticket, you think the judge made a mistake, you can appeal it. Termination of parental rights, when someone is drug addicted and they lose their child, you can appeal that. Felony conviction, planning and zoning decision, personal injury, wills or trusts, you want to challenge a will, court makes a decision, you have a right to appeal. So as an appellate court judge, we don't get to decide what cases we take. We have to take whatever is appealed. And you see that's a broad range of cases. With rare exception, the Ohio Supreme Court does not have to take your case. You do not have a right to appeal in the Ohio Supreme Court. With rare exception, like death penalty cases, it only takes cases it feels is of great importance to the state. Now, I submit to you, if you have 7 justices who all belong to the same political party, that's ripe for groupthink. And the pressures, I would say, are enormous to fall in lockstep with decisions of whether cases get in. So, if it's a controversial issue in Ohio, they can decide not to take the case, so it never has to be decided. And again, because we're so diverse, I mean, we are urban, we are rural, we're suburban, we're blue collar, we're white collar, we're no collar, technology, manufacturing, agriculture, and farming. We are a very diverse state. Even politically, we're diverse. Independents, Green, Republican, Democrat. And so, by being in the room, I'm running to help restore some balance to that court. So now you say balance, you get there, it'll just be 6-1. Where's the balance? The difference is, for you Hamilton buffs, I'll be in the room where it happens. So when cases come up, and a vote is decided, or there's a discussion on whether it's an issue of great importance to the state, my perspective will be different. And I can say, this is of great importance to the state, and let me tell you why. Those justices might then say, we never thought about it that way. And if they don't, and I still think it's of great importance to the state, I can then write a dissenting opinion. The power of the pen is very important to the Supreme Court and appellate courts. Dissenting opinion. And anybody who's familiar with my work in the appellate court knows I am never afraid to write a dissenting opinion. So that's one reason I'm running. Second reason I'm running, I'm an excellent public servant, and I take a great deal of pride in being a good public servant. My court is in a beautiful old courthouse in Cuyahoga County that sits in front of the Cleveland Browns Stadium that used to be known as the House of Sorrows before we won a couple games. And so when I walk in that building and there's paper on the floor, I pick it up because the public shouldn't have to come into a crappy looking public building. And the lawyers who practice there shouldn't have to step over garbage, even if it's just one piece of paper. And when I'm up front and the receptionist's away from the desk and the phone is ringing more than a few times, I pick up the phone and answer it. Court of Appeals, how can I help you? I might not know the answer, but I put them on hold until somebody gets there, which is usually fairly quickly. So public service, I believe in servant leadership, and it's not just when I put the robe on and go on the bench. I also am very active in extra, I don't want to say extracurricular, but extrajudicial activities. So I am the chair for the entire state of Ohio for the Capital Case Attorney Fee Council. That's a council comprised of 5 appellate court judges from across the state, all appointed by the Chief Justice. I call them 4 guys and me, and I'm the chair of that committee. And we're responsible for setting the rate of compensation that lawyers get when they represent indigent defendants who are being tried for a death penalty case. If the state of Ohio is going to be in the business of putting people to death for the most heinous of crimes, those defendants have to be adequately represented. And so we set that rate. I'm also on the board of the Judicial College for the Ohio Supreme Court. We're responsible for educating all the judges and court personnel across the state. And last, I spent about 2 years, about 18 months on the Criminal Justice Codification Committee. And that's a committee that was designed to look at the entire criminal code for our state and how it's applied across the state, and reconciling it with case law and making some recommendations to the General Assembly. And so that's on the wholesale, on a statewide basis. I've also sat on the Supreme Court already by assignment. There's 7 justices on the court, and when one of them or 2 of them has to recuse him or herself because there's a conflict, then the Chief Justice appoints one of us appellate court judges to sit in that justice's place. And so I've done that on a couple of occasions already. So that in a nutshell is why, and I forgot the 3rd reason, I'm running for some reforms in our judicial system. We are not as efficient, we are not as effective, and we are not as responsive to the needs of the citizens that we need to be. The people in Ohio have spoken. They want to elect their judges. So because we want to elect the judges, that's fine, but we need some accountability once they get there. And there's very little of that. And I say to you, there are many judges across the state that don't need the motivation of anybody other than their own work ethic to do their jobs. But then there are some, not quite so much. You need some more guidelines. It shouldn't take a year for a motion to pend in a case. Civil cases shouldn't have to be bumped all the time because the criminal case backlog is there. Lawyers shouldn't have to file motions to compel just to get a judge to rule on something. So there are some guidelines on which we can put in place that has more transparency, more efficiency, more effectiveness in the court. So those are the reasons why I'm running. It has been, as I said to you earlier, an honor and privilege to meet people across the state, and what I'm finding out is we really are more alike than we are unalike. Everybody wants good government. Everybody wants their tax dollars to work the best for them. You don't want waste. And granted, oftentimes we find that there are different ideas and thoughts about how to get there. But I think at the end of the day, if the public can have confidence in the judiciary, and I submit to you, I don't think there's any way the public as a whole can have confidence in an all one-party judiciary. I think it's naive to think that we can. It's probably offensive even to think that we can at worst. And so hopefully this November, if you like what you hear, and I'll take some time and answer some questions that you have, that you'll support my candidacy, you'll send out postcards, you'll tell people vote for that judge with a musical name, and we'll be successful. And if we aren't, it's I keep my job on the appellate court, I continue serving people in Cuyahoga County, but I think this is the opportunity where we begin to take back our government and make it be a government for the people and by the people. So thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, thank you very much. And you already have 2 votes from Cincinnati, my husband and mine.
I'm up to 57 votes now. People told me they've already voted. I appreciate that.
Well, 2 things. First of all, I want to make sure everybody knows that the judges cannot have R or D on the ballot. So it's really important that you let people know. And in the Cincinnati, in Hamilton County, we do have a card with all of the Democratic candidates. Yeah, I had some Republicans say, "Oh, I can't take that." I said, "Okay, fine, but then you don't know who not to vote for." So, well, no. The issue 1, I don't know if you can comment on it or not, Um, and truthfully, issue one is the issue that would just basically make minor drug offenses, which are become felonies, it would make them misdemeanors. I know I'm simplifying it, but that's the basis of it. And the money saved from putting these kids in jail will go to treatment. Again, I know it's simple, but that's how I've been explaining it. Now, I know a lot of attorneys are not for it because it will be a constitutional amendment. And I mean, my feeling is that's fine, but with our legislature being 2/3 Republican, we're never going to get this as legislation, so we the people must speak. But I really wanted to know your opinion on it.
Well, and you did a great synopsis, and I don't have a personal opinion on it, or, let me just say this about it. You're absolutely right. I think part of the reason we even have this issue on our ballot is because the General Assembly has failed to act.
Yeah.
And I sat on the Criminal Justice Recodification Committee. On that committee was the Director of Corrections, who says he gave a percentage of people who are stuck in his prisons that don't need to be there. And that prisons need to be reserved for the hardest hardened criminals who injure people, who can't be rehabilitated, who come out and re-victimize and re-victimize and re-victimize. Yeah. And so he said that. He wants, excuse me, there to be less overcrowded in prison. And so this issue is in response to a legislature that has failed to act. I think the precepts and the goals of the issue are laudable. I do, and I understand them. The brief reading I've done of the issue, I think there are some problems with the language. There's some ambiguity. And then when you get to having, and then to amend the Constitution, once again, let's go back to good government. If government does what it's supposed to do, then we don't have to try to rush to amend our Constitution every time. But something has to happen. Something has to be done. And so I don't have a position on yes or no issue one. I know a lot of attorneys, the Chief Justice, a lot of judges have come out and are adamantly opposed to it. They see the unintended consequences of it, and so I do understand that, and so I'm going to say that. But I don't have a position. I do tell people, be sure that you read it, that you understand it. And what happens most of the time is when people don't understand the issue, then they don't vote for it. They leave it blank and they let others vote for it. Maybe those who know more about it, maybe not. Maybe those who just want to cast their vote in a category. And so it will be interesting to see what happens to it. And so this is not a no or yes vote, at least from my perspective. It is, quite frankly, I have not taken the time to study it the way I need to, because I'm voting on November 6th. I don't get my act together in time to vote early. But so I'm voting on November, once I take my nephew. And so before it's time for me to vote, then I will educate myself on it so I can inform my own vote. But I don't really have a strong sense of position, and I'm not sure that I would set it forth anyway. Fair enough?
Well, I've been advocating for people to vote yes.
Okay.
Mostly because, many of our prisons are privately owned, and, putting these kids, and it's mostly young black kids who are going to jail, getting felonies on their record. It's not necessary for that, for minor offenses. And so, well,
I understand people who are supporting it. I do.
I'm just doing that, so thank you.
Yes.
I heard, and I want to ask if you think this is true. The Republicans seem to pay more attention or value more their votes for things like Supreme Court than the Democrats. And if so, why do you think that's so? I mean, we have a Republican Supreme Court. There has to be, I'm sure there are many reasons why that is, but is it because of the different mindset, do you think?
Well, let me say this. In the interview I had with one of the newspapers, one of the reporters said to me, well, it's the Democrats' fault they haven't got anybody elected to the Supreme Court. And I said, they said it's the Democratic Party's fault that they haven't gotten anybody elected to the Supreme Court. I said, no, it's the voters. The voters have to decide. Now, granted, the Republican Party has done a magnificent job of maintaining a stranglehold on the Ohio Supreme Court. I mean, it's a well-oiled machine. They've done it for years. And I have to say, now being in the trenches and doing this, and being more involved with the Ohio Democratic Party now than I have ever been in my life, this is the first time in recent history that the Ohio, the state party, has taken a real interest in the Supreme Court. I mean, there have been times, quite frankly, where the Supreme Court races were such an afterthought that they weren't even considered statewide races to the Democratic Party. And then it's the financing. It's the dark money, the PACs, the interest groups, who will run ads on behalf of Supreme Court candidates. We don't have that from the Democratic Party side. As I told you, I mean, I'm going to be outbased 5-1 by my opponent because it is important to them to maintain their. It's interesting. My opponent goes around and talks about stability, maintaining when she talks to her constituency and her base, saying you have to retain me because we want to maintain stability and balance on the court. Now, I'm not sure what balance she's talking about because there is no balance politically, 7-0. And by stability, let's be clear, she means monopoly, she means 7-0 Republican, and she means stranglehold. That's what they mean by stability. And they will couch it in terms of we need to keep stability, we stay in our lanes, we don't legislate from the bench, we're not judicial activists. Well, I've been an appellate court judge for 12 years. Point to one opinion and I've written that's judicially active, that's a judicial activist opinion. Name one time I've legislated from the bench. You can't. We all take, every judge in the state of Ohio takes a vote to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Ohio. And if there's some deviation from that, there can be sanctions from it, technically, if there's some ethical considerations there. Or, and again, as appellate court judges, we set and decide things by majority. 3-0, 2-1, 2-1. And so that's the line of the running with, implying that if you get 2 Democrats on the bench, then, what'll break loose. And exactly. Because I don't know what was going to happen, and so that's what they mean by stability. They want to maintain that strength law. It's in their best interest. Now, some think because when the General Assembly makes a law, or if the executive office does something, then you've got a Supreme Court that will uphold whatever they do. That's a danger too. I mean, to have one party control every single solitary branch of government in the state of Ohio is amazing to me. 100% Supreme Court, 100% executive offices, overwhelming majority of the legislature in the House and Senate. And so, again, if things were going fine and there wasn't if we were a great state and no one had any complaints, which I can't imagine would happen under any circumstances, but it's time for things to get better. And I don't advocate for an all Democratic everything either. I mean, we need the diverse intellect, ideas, thoughts. We're such a diverse state, and everybody in the state, from the small little village in southern Ohio or central Ohio to all the major cities, everybody who is a citizen of the state of Ohio needs to have representation. And although the court isn't a representative body like the General Assembly, it's still got to be aware of the issues that confront everybody in their day-to-day lives. So we haven't been, to the chairman's credit, to David Pepper's credit, he has done a yeoman's job at making sure that the Supreme Court races are in the forefront of people's mind. Unfortunately, maybe the U.S. Supreme Court situation with Judge Kavanaugh, Justice Kavanaugh now, and Dr. Ford has shed some more light on the Supreme Court and how important these decisions are. And let me speak just briefly about that situation, and not because I know anything about it. It's so sad. I don't even know where my remote control is to my TV, let alone what's been on TV for a while. I was with Ernie and I were driving somewhere a few weeks ago. I said, so what's going on in baseball? How are the Indians doing? He's like, they got swept. They're out. I didn't even know playoffs had started. But I got a text from an old law school classmate of mine who's working in Washington, D.C. Maybe about a month ago. And she said, text me, do you think Dr. Ford will testify? And I read that text. And I looked at it, and I thought, and finally I gave up, and I texted back, Dr. Ford, question mark? Because I didn't have a clue who Dr. Ford was, because I just hadn't seen TV. Now, and I haven't seen anything of the hearings and don't know the details of what happened. I obviously know now the end result. And this is what angers me about that entire situation. Whether you believe Dr. Ford, whether you believe Justice Kavanaugh, what drives me crazy and just makes my blood pressure rise is the fact that the President of the United States and the Judiciary Committee had information that Dr. Ford had prior to Judge Kavanaugh's being nominated. So why didn't they, as good public servants, investigate that information, do all of that before nominating him, and certainly without putting it in front of TV for the world to see, to divide us more, to cause harm to her and her family? They've gotten death threats, they had to move, and embarrass Justice Kavanaugh's family and all that they've had to go through. They put this on the screen for the world to see and made it, you know, like the clash of the titans. Who was going to win? In the meantime, the losers were every single citizen in the United States, in my opinion, and the U.S. Supreme Court, because the U.S. Supreme Court was supposed to be what was on the front, what should have been the most important aspect of that whole thing. It was who's going to win and who's going to lose. You know, Judge Kavanaugh's side or Dr. Ford's side. We actually made it a sport, and that was the sad thing to me. Good public servants would not have allowed that to happen. They would not have sacrificed those two people and their families and not divided this country more. And that's what bothers me about the current state of our elected officials. It seems like public service is lost on being an elected official. Okay, there.
Well, I think that you kind of answered the question there. They're not good public servants. They're there representing the rich and powerful and the unaccountable. And that is corruption to my mind. And I see that there's three major problems in our country, and number one is corruption. Number two is voter suppression, which is how they get away with all this corruption, by keeping the people from voting and having their voices heard. And the third one is the privatization and profiteering off of the government, turning government services and government's existence into profit for private enterprise. So how do you see possibly handling some of these things from the Supreme Court, even in a minority status?
Well, it's interesting because, of course, as a Supreme Court, I wish I could become a Supreme Court justice, wave a magic wand, and cure all of our ills. And you know, I'm a realist. I know that won't happen. And at the Supreme Court level, of course, the Supreme Court can only do what's brought in front of them. Again, going back to what even gets in the door, what gets in the door at the Supreme Court. And then things have to be decided based on the law, based on the Constitution.